Welcome back, everyone! Today we will be talking about how to draw hands. Right after the face, the hands are the main focal point of the body, so it's really important that we draw them correctly. We are going to focus on 4 main areas: structure, proportion, shape, and process. To understand the structure of the fingers, you can draw 5 lines that represent the skeleton. Then you put 3 circles on each of them, 2 on the thumb, to represent the joints. A common mistake that many artists make, including myself, is making the joints of the fingers in a straight line when they are really in a shape similar to an arc. The joints of the fingers are aligned with each other. The thumb's second joint aligns with the bottom joints of the other fingers, and the top of the pinky is just beneath the third joint of the ring finger. Its first joint is placed at the center line of the palm. Now let's look at the range of movement for the hand. The spacing between the fingers is very different. The greatest distance is between the thumb and the pointer finger. Next is the spacing between the pinky and ring finger, while the spacing between the other fingers are about the same. The wrist and palm move in a perpendicular 90-degree angle when they're moving forward and backwards, and they have a 120-degree angle when they're fully extended from side to side. The back side of the hand is divided in half between the fingers and the palm. On the front of the hand, the palm takes up over half of the hand's length. When the hand is viewed directly from the front and back, the middle finger is the longest, while the pointer finger is slightly taller than the index finger. All the fingers get a little bit narrower starting from the base. For shortening distorts the regular proportions of the fingers in the palm depending on how the hand is positioned. Make sure you study closely how the proportions of the hands change when used in different poses. To do this, it's best to look at dynamic poses with lots of movement and exaggeration. The fingers can be drawn as 3 little cylinders. The gaps between them become the area where the joints are formed. The finger sockets look like 4 circles in the rectangular-looking palm. It's good to draw the finger sockets on the hands so you know exactly where the fingers are supposed to go. It's also important to know that the hand has both straight and curved lines. The top of the hand has straight lines, while the bottom of the hand has more curved lines. This is because there's more layers of flesh on the bottom than the top of the hand. The back of the hand appears flat, but it actually curves away from the thumb. Make sure you avoid this mistake so your hands look realistic. It's easier to draw the fingers straight, but the fingers actually have a slight curve towards the middle finger. This is because of the arc that we talked about earlier. Adding this subtle detail makes hand poses look much more natural. There is usually noticeable spacing between the fingers even when they're straight. Remember to keep this in mind unless you intentionally want to make a hand pose that's stiff and rigid. Shadows and highlights also help make accurate hand shapes by creating depth. The darkest shadows will be between the corners of the fingers, while the lightest parts of the hand will be closest to the light source. There are 3 processes I've found to drawing hands that I really like. They're all done using the tools of gesture lines, skeletal structure, shapes, and grid lines. Gesture lines are simply quickly drawn lines that describe the direction of a hand's movement and the general position of the fingers. Gesture lines are more curvy than the shapes of the hand, so they look a lot less realistic. Animators will often use gesture lines to apply the squash and stretch principle to the hands that we talked about in the expressions video. Grid lines are groups of lines drawn over more detailed hands to describe their shape and volume. The most common hand drawing process I see artists using begins with gesture, then the shapes of the hand, and then the skeletal structure. I've also seen artists draw the gesture, then skeletal structure, and then the hand shapes, or the form, then gesture, then the skeletal structure. The mitten technique is an example of a process that starts with form and gesture. It's frequently used for poses where most of the fingers are bunched together. Using any pose of your choice, you draw a mitten where the fingers will be grouped together and then add the details using shape and structure. Then you add some spaces between the fingers to make the pose look natural. I really like this technique because it helps you to properly map out the proportions of the hand. I almost never see artists start out with the skeletal structure of the hand in their drawing process. I think this is because it causes hand poses to look stiff, but it's a good place to start when you're simply trying to understand the anatomy of the hand, as I'm doing in these drawings. Keep in mind that stylization usually affects the techniques you use to draw your hands. You can exaggerate certain features of your hands, like the curves and edges of the fingers, and you can also consider how different hands have variations like finger length and palm size. The 3 exercises that help you draw better hands are tracing, drawing with references, and drawing from imagination. Try to limit the amount of time you spend drawing each hand. I'd recommend only taking 1 to 3 minutes per hand. This will keep your hand poses looking loose and keep you from getting frustrated when you make mistakes. The best thing about tracing hands is that it helps you feel what a correct hand pose looks like. The downside is that the pose often looks stiff unless you exaggerate them a bit or make minor changes to clarify the silhouette. Drawing with references has similar benefits, but your brain has to work harder to understand the pose being drawn, and as a result, you get better at drawing hands through visual and muscle memory. It's important to draw the hands from different perspectives so you become familiar with the hand from every angle. If you draw 10 hands a day for 10 days in a row, you will have practice drawing 100 hands. After that, you should be able to see significant improvement in the accuracy of your drawings. Drawing from imagination is the most challenging skill to practice. This is where you take everything you've learned about the hand structure, proportion, and shape to make poses on the spot. The great thing about your imagination is that it will help you come up with very dynamic poses that you may not be able to find from references. Remember, you can only draw hands as accurately as you understand the technical tools used to make them. Just keep on practicing, and don't be discouraged if some of your hands don't turn out right. Once you get comfortable with drawing from references and imagination, you can apply it to more fun things like drawing the hands in relation to objects in the face. If you've come to the end of this video feeling like hands are more trouble than they're worth, I completely understand. To tell the truth, I've avoided drawing hands for years, and they're still hard for me to draw sometimes. But once I realized just how much expression and personality they add to my characters, it inspired me to keep practicing until I get it, and I hope you do too. I hope you enjoyed the video. Remember to like, subscribe, and share it with a friend. Please let me know other topics you'd like me to cover in the future. I have a bunch of additional resources for hand drawing in the comments, so make sure to check them out. Dream big, live bold, and keep on creating. See you next time!